Council members, the council meeting of January 5th, 2021 is called to order. How about we stand for the pledge? Is Deidre with us?
I do not see.
Okay, we'll have Kathy McDowell lead us in.
There's Deputy Mayor.
There she is.
I was waiting to be let in.
Oh.
I'm here.
Would
There's
you
a
lead
lot
us-
of people to
would
let
you
in.
lead us in the
I
pledge
imagine there
tonight?
might have been a few for you, Donna.
Would you lead us in the pledge tonight?
Sure.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, under liberty and justice for all.
Turn our mics back on. All right. Donna, would you do roll call, please?
Yes, I will. Councilmember Schmidt,
Here.
Councilmember McDowell,
Present.
Councilmember Bode,
Here.
Mayor Dorsey,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Peterson,
Here.
Councilmember Inesco,
Here.
and Councilmember Feast.
Here.
All right. Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Do we have any late changes to our agenda tonight? If not, at this time, I would like to remind members of the public they can make comments during the public comment period, as well as any items listed on the business agenda for the action agenda. Option number one, let me get my glasses on here, guys. Join the Zoom meeting by clicking on the link that is displayed on the city's webpage. The link is listed on the agendas and minutes page under the tab that says more. Option two is to email City Manager Jeff Knighton. And option three is to call Jeff's office. Both the email address and phone number are displayed on the screen of Mason Web TV streaming video. All right. Let's move on to council reports. Jeff, will you give us an update on council member boards and committees?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. We have all of the same assignments that council had last year after discussing with each of you. Councilmember Schmidt is a member of the Economic Development Council, again for 2021. Mayor Dorsey, of course, chairs the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. Councilmember Bode is a member of the Mason County Criminal Justice Working Team. And Councilmember Inesco, a member of the Emergency Food and Shelter Group. And Councilmember McDowell is a member of both the Law Enforcement Officers and Firefighters Board and the Mason County Board of Health. She's detailed to attend those meetings. Councilmember Schmidt is on the Mason County EMS and Trauma Council. And Mayor Dorsey, you retain your membership on the Mason Transit Authority Board.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Peterson is participating in the Peninsula Regional Transportation Planning Organization. And the one change that we had from last year is that Councilmember Feast will now be attending the Mason County Housing and Behavioral Health Advisory Board. And we have, of course, I'm sorry. Councilmember Feast will now be attending the opioid stakeholders meeting. I had that jumbled up on my list here. My mistake. Councilmember Inesco will still be attending the Mason County Housing and Behavioral Health Advisory Board. And finally, all of you are members of the Shelton Metropolitan Parks District. Easy for me to say. So those are our committee assignments for 2021. Way to get the year started off right.
All right, should we move on to council reports? Who wants to go first? Where's Donna? Donna, you want to call it out?
Sure.
I think Councilmember McDowell wanted to brief the council on a seminar she attended with
Okay.
the Association of Washington City.
Hello. In November, last November, I attended the Managing Risks Associated with Homelessness seminar that was put on by the AWC. It was a 3-day event. And I can't talk about the whole 3 days, but I'll just bring out a few points that was very interesting to me. A council member from Ording has been homeless. And he, by no choice of his own, he became homeless, and he was a council member. So he was able to enlighten people, the public, a little easier on homelessness and how it affects people and the public. He said one of the big things about being homeless is that you want people to talk to you. He said people just walk past you and ignore you. He said we function much better as homeless when we have people talking to us and asking how we're doing and taking an interest in our lives. There was a part on the seminar about navigating the legal landscape of homelessness, meaning what can be legal and what is not legal. And of course, what is not legal is people just camping where they want to, basically. So that was an issue there. He showed pictures of encampments that were cleaned up, when the ones they could clean up and ones they couldn't. If there was a note placed in the encampment, then they could not, asking them to leave all their stuff there, they could not go in and clean up the encampment. So that was a big legal part of that. Healthcare and homelessness are hugely linked with enormous public health significance. It may exacerbate medical conditions such as diabetes, heart disease, addiction, conditions weaken a person's financial stability and become a risk factor for homelessness. So you may have a job, you may have a home, but you may get sick, lose your job, one paycheck away from being homeless, and you're homeless. And those things that need to be cleaned up as far as health is very, very important. How to reduce the risk of homelessness was one of the conversations. Uncovering the symptoms and getting effective treatment is critical to reducing symptoms, improving health functions, and reducing the risk of homelessness. Symptoms may include recurrent or unwanted memories of the event. So if a traumatic event caused you to become homeless, that can be turned over in the person's mind at all times, which prevents them from getting help and getting well. So what I got from this seminar was that the health of the homeless is very important to keep. They're not healthy. They continue not to be healthy, and it just keeps spiraling backwards. So remember, this man from Ording, he said, remember when you walk past a homeless person, don't ignore them, stop and talk to them.
All right. That's a good idea. Anybody else have a council report? Deidre?
I just wanted to make note that both Councilmember McDowell and I sat in on the Watershed Restoration Enhancement Committee for WIRA 14 in December. There's another meeting coming up here shortly. That is something that the public can find information on the Department of Ecology website. But at this point, there's a draft plan that has been mailed out to all the council members for red flag comments, which those can be sent back to Jeff Knighton, Ken Gill, and staff to take a look at. But I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to that because that is for the Kennedy Goldsboro watershed, and it's going to be an important piece moving forward for 2021.
All right, thank you. Eric, do you have something?
I can just explain my board. I'm on the Housing Behavioral Health Advisory Board. which consists of 3 citizens, a county commissioner, a city council member, which is me, Mason County Board of Health representative, an administrative service organization representative, and several staff members from the county. And I should have an annual report by our next meeting when it's approved.
Megan? Do you have something for us?
Not anything that like
Okay.
meetings or anything that I attended. I provided some data to our Seattle and San Francisco Fed around just the tax rates that we're seeing coming out of October. But other than that, I'm looking forward to getting more involved though with like, and thanks Deidre for the opportunity to sit on the opioid stakeholders meeting group.
Joe?
Nothing to report other than business as usual. Happy 2021.
Yeah. James?
Nothing to report as well.
Okay. I'd like to just report that, you know, I've been going to the Mason Transit meetings and, well, staying home for the Mason Transit meetings. And, you know, it's mostly been this time of year, it's mostly been budgeting and policies and things like that. But I'm not exactly sure if they're open yet, but I know they're close to being open, and that's the 2 park and rides. I drove by the one out there by, kind of near the Ford garage there, and it looks real nice. And anyway, so that's kind of exciting. We got 2 new areas there that are done nice. That's all I have. So,
You know, Mayor Dorsey, I did have one thing, and I should have mentioned this. I apologize.
okay,
I do sit on the board for the Senior Services for South Sound for Thurston and Mason counties. And they continue to provide Meals on Wheels for our constituency here in the city of Shelton, as well as across the county, and have a great partnership with our local transit authority as well. And they're looking to, you know, continue providing service and expanding as COVID allows. So just doing really well. They did get their PPP waived, their entire one. And so it was about $340,000. So it was a big deal for our senior community. And then they also had about $100,000 of PPE that was donated between masks and gloves. And so that's being distributed also across the 2 areas. So, thanks. Sorry about that. I completely forgot.
that's fine. That's great. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's move on to the public comment. Donna, do we have anyone interested in making a public comment?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I have 3 people that have signed up to comment on a specific item on the business agenda,
Okay,
but we have a lot of guests here this evening, so I don't know. I'm
yeah,
scanning the sector to see if anyone's raising their hand to see if they want to make a comment now.
all right, let's move on then.
How do you do that?
Pardon me?
How do you raise your hand?
You can raise your actual hand, or down at the bottom of the screen, if you click near participants, there should be an option for you to raise your hand. So, Mr. Mayor, I will look again and see if I see anyone.
Okay,
And Donna, for me, on my Zoom, if I click on the chat window, the
Yeah.
raise hand button shows up in the bottom right corner.
And I see one more person has signed up, Mr. Mayor, for agenda item E4. So I don't see anyone for this general public comment.
Okay.
period.
You. I saw that.
who, okay, it looks like
Someone named Gary.
Gary's trying to get in.
Yes.
We don't hear you very well, Gary. Could you turn up your your volume, and then could you also give me your full name?
My name is Gary Miner. And hopefully you can hear me now, closer and talking louder. That help?
Yes. What is your last name, Gary?
Miner, M-I-N-E-R.
Thank you. Okay, sir, you have 3 minutes and I'm starting the timer.
All right. I just had a concern about the proposed development that is between Brockdale, Highland Lake Drive, and Parsley Sage, or whatever it's called. This first I heard about it was today, and I'm just wondering if they're going to go through an EIS process for development, and do people have the ability to express concerns about issues about this proposed development?
Mr. Miner, we'll take comments on that when that agenda item comes up. But I did hear your comments, and we'll address those when we give the presentation, when we get to that item.
Sorry.
No problem at all.
No problem.
So this time is just for general public comment on things not on our agenda this evening.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. First item on the business agenda is a master plan for Eagle Point Park Community Development Director Mark Ziegler has the details.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, members of the public tonight. I am pleased to bring you tonight the first step in design for Eagle Point Park. As you'll remember, the city acquired about 14 acres of Eagle Point back in 2016 that was deeded over from the South Puget Sound Salmon Enhancement Group. That was acquired through the Greater Oakland Bay Cleanup Restoration Project. The South Puget Sound Salmon Enhancement Group deeded it to the city for long-term care and maintenance, as well as providing public recreation, and as it is now, the only city park on Oakland Bay. So we're bringing to you tonight a draft contract for design services, which is the first step, which is the master plan, to develop and vet the recreational amenities that would go in Eagle Point Park. The first step is developing a stakeholders group of those individuals that have a defined interest in this park property facility. We'll go through some preliminary master planning, the public meetings, public workshops to display and describe what kind of amenities might take place, refine those, and come back with a preferred master plan to the city council. Along with that master planning process, or included in that master planning process, is wetland delineation and some survey work as well. We're hoping to include and incorporate some trails, water access to the beach, nearshore access, parking, and possibly a kayak launch or non-motorized launch as well into Oakland Bay and Hammersley Inlet in this process. This project was budgeted actually to start in 2020. We didn't get the opportunity to get that forward, but we're bringing it to you here early in 2021 with additional funds that were budgeted in 2021 to complete not only master plan, but once that preferred master plan is executed and approved, to move forward with some design work from that point forward. And then, as I mentioned, stakeholders group is being formed. So if anybody is interested in serving on that stakeholders group, we're taking inquiries at this point, and they can contact me for more information on what that would entail. And I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mark. Don, do we have any comment on this item?
Let me look at the two screens, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
No, we don't, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Do we have a motion to move this forward?
I move to forward the contract with Robert W. Droll for master plan design of Eagle Point Park to the January 19th City Council agenda meeting and place it on the action agenda for further consideration.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion here? All right. We have a motion and a second to forward the contract with Robert W. Droll for master plan design of Eagle Point Park to the January 19th City Council meeting and place it on the action agenda for further consideration. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. All right, at this time, we're going to recess from our regular meeting to open public hearing about a franchise agreement with Mason County. Public Works Director Jay Harris is going to share information with us about a franchise agreement.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, City Council, Jay Harris, your Public Works Director. Tonight, we have an ordinance in front of you to enter an updated franchise agreement with Mason County. What that will allow us to do is to maintain and upgrade our water lines, sewer lines, reclaimed water lines, and storm drainage facilities within the UGA, the urban growth area, within county roadways. So we have some of our public facilities are in county roadways, and this franchise agreement talks about how we get a permit through the county to go do work, and how we perform the work, and how we restore the right of way, and some insurance requirements and that sort of thing. The prior agreement expired in 2017. This agreement, when adopted by council, is good for a term of 10 years and then has some renewal clauses with that also. That's my presentation, and I'm open to questions.
Okay. Donna, do we have any public testimony on this item?
Let me check it out, Mr. Mayor. No, sir, I don't see anyone.
Okay. Will you give us a first reading of ordinance number 1959-1120?
Yes. Ordinance number 1959-1120, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, accepting a non-exclusive franchise agreement between Mason County and the City of Shelton for the operations and maintenance of water, sewer, reclaimed water, and stormwater utilities.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I move to forward ordinance number 1959-1120 to the action agenda for the council meeting on January 19th, 2021.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to forward ordinance number 1959-1120 to the action agenda for the council meeting on January 19th. All in favor? Say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, this public hearing is closed and we are opening another public hearing about amending our municipal code. Finance Director Aaron B. Miller is going to speak to us about amending the Shelton Municipal Code.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, council members. The ordinance before you would update the Shelton Municipal Code, Chapter 3.52.090, dealing with B&O tax, and this would actually provide tax relief for particular nonprofit organizations. Currently, the code allows for 501c3 organizations to be B&O exempt, and what this legislation would do would exempt all B&O or all organizations under the 501c IRS code. And what we would do is make this change retroactive to January 1st, 2020. The city by law follows the B&O model ordinance. However, for non-mandatory parts, non-mandatory provisions of the ordinance, we can deviate from that. And so we are within our rights to do this if the council wants to approve. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. How about public testimony, Donna?
Let me check it out. No, Mr. Mayor, no one for public testimony.
All right, would you please give us the first reading of ordinance number 1960-1220?
Yes. Ordinance number 1960-1220. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington relating to exemptions from business and occupation tax, amending Shelton Municipal Code, Chapter 3.52, entitled Business and Occupation Tax.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move that we forward this ordinance to the action agenda of the January 19th, 2021 City Council meeting for further consideration.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to forward this ordinance to the action agenda on the January 19th City Council meeting for further consideration. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, move on. This public hearing is closed and we are opening another public hearing regarding workforce housing. All right, City Manager Jeff Knighton has details for us about a workforce housing development project. Jeff?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council, members of the public. Tonight we have a development agreement for your consideration. And we've been working on this with Equity Plus LLC for some time, and the work really stems out of a workforce housing summit that took place about this time 2 years ago that identified the need for workforce housing in the Shelton community. This, I want to make clear, is the first step in a very long process for approving and taking a look at what the development will ultimately be. And the map that's attached to your packet is a concept plan. It is not a regulatory plan. And by that, I mean, this map does not lock in what the development is going to ultimately look like. That'll be determined by other processes that the public will have the opportunity to comment on as well. What the development agreement and what the proposal does is allows up to 400 units of detached affordable housing, workforce housing units on the site immediately north of the disc golf course and the Huff and Puff Trail. And there's a couple of pieces and components to that. Enhanced trails, as you'll see in a moment. The developer is here with us and has a presentation that will immediately follow mine. But I wanted to address a couple of questions I've heard about in the community today. One, again, just want to make clear, this is not the final step. Far from it. There will be plenty of opportunities to comment and participate in the process as we move forward. The next step, we'll have to do a purchase and sale agreement for the property. We'll also have to, actually, before the purchase and sale, we'll have to do, council will have to do a surplus action on the property. That's also a public hearing. A couple other things I've heard, this is watershed land, and it's necessary for protection of our drinking water and other types of things. That was true back when Shelton's drinking water supply was dependent on a spring. The spring is no longer used. We use a well now, so the protection area for that well is much smaller than it would be for a spring, or was for a spring at the time when we were using it. And again, the disc golf course and the Huff and Puff trail system that our residents currently enjoy will be enhanced by this project. It will not be eliminated. I heard that a couple times today, so I wanted to make sure that part got out there. And then after the purchase and sale and after the surplus, assuming all those go through at the desire of council, the actual plan review will take place. And that's where we will be able to determine the total number of housing units that will work on the site, as well as ensure that all the stormwater protection is afforded to the residents that currently live around the site. We're not going to produce a whole bunch of water that runs onto everybody else's property. And other things that might affect density, such as the wetland that runs through the middle of the property. Obviously can't be developed, but those are considerations that we'll take a look at during the plan review process, which again, the public will have the opportunity to comment on. There are other encumbrances, potential encumbrances on the property that will all have to be identified. A couple of things, a couple of other things. I did receive a couple of phone calls today, one from a Jessie Farrington, and she wanted to express concerns about the property, and she will be participating moving forward, like I hope all of our guests this evening will. But she was had the assumption that the Huff and Puff Trail and the disc golf course were going to go away. And let me be clear, that is not the case. It's never been the case with this proposal. Also had a conversation with Mr. Fox, who I believe is with us tonight, so I'll let him make his comments, along with a couple of emails that I just wanted to address really quickly before I turn it over to Avram. If I can find the email here. Let's see. So with the different phases of this project, again, as a concept, not as the final version, there are other public amenities that are being considered. One is a mountain bike course. The access road internal to the property that's described in the development would be the developer's responsibility. However, if because of wetland type or anything else, that access road cannot be constructed, we would facilitate looking at other ways to access the other side of the property. That's all that means. And as I said, the disc golf course won't be affected. It's important to note that this project will pay approximately $1.4 million toward new traffic controls at the intersection of Brockdale Road and Wallace Newman Boulevard. And I think I've hit all the questions I've received so far today, but if not, I'm sure folks will let me know. Also, I'd like to allow the developer to make his presentation. And if it's okay with council, we'll have members of the public that would like to comment. And after that and the public hearing is closed, I'll answer all the questions that I'm able to, assuming there are several. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Fector, and I believe he has a presentation that he'd like to share with us.
All right, Mr. Fector, you're up.
Thank you. And just making sure that the technology work and you see my screen and the PowerPoint.
Yep, we can.
Always amazing when it does work. Once again, thank you for having us tonight. Obviously, if it was not for COVID, we'd be in the room with you and we'd have met with you personally and shaken your hand and do everything that we'd want to do. But instead, we are stuck meeting each other electronically over a Zoom call. So I hope to rectify that as we move forward and COVID exits stage left in 2021. Having said that, the major, I'm going to be brief with the PowerPoint presentation. You guys can have a copy of it afterwards and go through it with more detail. I'm happy to answer any questions both tonight or in following days, weeks, and months. But tonight I wanted to give you just an overview of who we are at Equity Plus, what workforce housing is, how it's financed, and how we think we can use the tools in our toolbox to address the clear need for workforce housing in your community. So a little bit about Equity Plus. We were founded in 2011. We've done about $1 billion of community development and workforce housing projects, wearing a variety of hats in multiple states across the country. The 5 that are most relevant for this conversation, where we've done joint ventures or other public-private partnerships with either cities, counties, public housing authorities, or nonprofits. On here, they're all targeted workforce housing projects that leverage underutilized land to address a housing need. I won't bore you with the details of all 5 tonight, but these are the examples here. So here's a little bit about what is workforce housing and how is it financed. So people hear about the low-income housing tax credit, and I know a lot of people just go, oh, it's low-income housing, it's Section 8, it's subsidized, because that's a typical, just the word low-income tends to have your head go there. In reality, you can use the low-income housing tax credit to finance projects that rent to people that earn as much of 60% of area median income on average. You can actually rent some homes up to 80% of AMI if you balance with those that are below 60. Well, what is 60% of area median income? In most jurisdictions like Shelton, it is a starting salary for teachers, firefighters, police officers. It's the $18 an hour job. You got the Amazon sorting facility. It's the folks that are packing your bags at the grocery store. As you'll see when we get later in the presentation, to afford these rents that we will be charging, you have to have a job. It's just not quite what the job that you have, the income that you're earning, probably would not allow you to afford a comparable unit at market rents in the same location. And that's why we think workforce housing is such a potential benefit for any community that builds it. You're ensuring that the people that work in the community also are able to live in that same community. And I know this from my own experience with my family. There's a certain intangible benefit, you can't put your finger on it, but you know it's there, of being able to run into your teacher at the grocery store, of being able to see your post office person that delivers your mail during the day at a soccer game on the weekend. So as you go forward. Also, as an economic development tool in general, I know this isn't as much of an issue for Shelton, but nationally, it's a recruiting tool. Employers like to locate in places where their employees don't have to drive an hour each way to get to work. That's just 2 examples. So the way the low-income credit works, and this is actually an important point because some questions we always get, including here, is, well, why can't you just do this as affordable home ownership? Well, unfortunately, the federal government has no steady, reliable subsidy for affordable home ownership. It does have this multi-billion-dollar tax credit for workforce housing rental. And that's what we're leveraging here. We get the credits from your state housing finance authority, as this chart shows. We sell those credits to private investors that are seeking to offset their tax liability. We in turn make guarantees to both the housing finance authority and the investors that we will both maintain compliance with the rules, renting to the right affordable families with the right affordability levels, and that we won't let it go bankrupt, because if there's a bankruptcy event, the investors lose all of their credits. So we're making financial guarantees to the investor and compliance guarantees to both the investor and the state housing finance agency. So we at Equity Plus will be on the hook for this for the foreseeable future, and we're comfortable with that. That's what we do. So here's generally what we've been looking at. As was noted by Jeff earlier, nothing set in stone yet. We recognize that there's a long public process we'll be going through with you and the broader community over the coming year as we refine the site plan, as we drill down on the exact number of units and lot sizes. As you see, we've already started factoring in the existing trails and golf access to our plans. Nothing says it's final. We know we want to create mountain bike trails. We've already started kind of looking at how they run through our community to get to connecting sites. I know to beat a dead horse, but please don't take these images as the gospel of, oh my God, we already have planning approval. Of course we don't. We haven't gone through the planning process yet. We'll have to go through the normal planning process before anything gets built. But it didn't seem like it made a lot of sense for town, city staff and us to spend literally weeks and months refining all those details if the council just wasn't interested in using its underutilized land to deliver workforce housing. And that's basically what this development agreement is all about that you're looking at tonight, and hopefully we'll vote on in the future, is making a simple policy statement that, yes, we agree workforce housing is an issue that we need to address, and we think that this land is a good tool to help address that. Moving on to next slide. So roughly speaking, and I'll reiterate, we can deliver units across the community that we are building as long as the average household income that rents a home is 60% of AMI. We can rent up to 80% of AMI if we balance every 80% unit with a corresponding 40% unit to average to 60, right? You get how that works. So the rents that we will charge for 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and 4-bedroom homes are actually going to be a range depending on the AMI level we are targeting. What you see in this slide is the rough average, the rough typical unit. So our current plans indicate we'll be renting 2-bedroom homes for about $850 a month, 3-bedroom homes for about $1,000 a month, and 4-bedroom homes for about $1,300 a month. As we've said previously, nothing set in stone yet. We've got a lot of the details to work out that the city will be intimately involved in as we go forward, but it won't look too much different than this. This is what this targeted employment band can afford. Moving on. So the type of housing. So we're going to build, we're going to use factory built homes to help keep quality but minimize cost. The house I'm talking to you from right now is essentially a factory built home. It was built on site, but if you get any house built by a major developer, whether it's Pulte or Ryan Homes, they all use the same basic construction techniques and materials across all the stuff they're doing. They're just doing it on site. With these, we're doing them in a factory, which helps keep down, you get economies of scale by buying in bulk on materials, but also you minimize errors, human errors, because you've got the workers actually are drug tested regularly, and you get you don't have as many weather issues because you're inside. And we'll talk a little more about that. We will work with you to figure out the exact targeted workforce. In many projects that we work on, working in a public-private partnership like this, the community we work with indicates they want to prioritize a certain classification of employment base on a wait list, because as you'll see later, we estimate that the rents we'll be charging for these units are 15 to 20% lower than what the exact same home built on the exact same site would rent, but for the deed restrictions. And that's been validated by an initial market study we have had done and have been reviewed by city staff. So these things tend to get a wait list, and a pretty long one for that reason. We are able to create some prioritization within these wait lists. Obviously, we got to follow fair housing rules, and we always do. Everyone wants us to. You want to. But within fair housing, there's recognition that there are certain legitimate public policy reasons for example, a city government to want to encourage its own employees to live in the city they live. That's one example. Obviously, the third major element of this that I just touched on is when you're renting homes at 15 to 20% below their market comparable rent, you are creating millions of dollars of wealth for these moderate income families that, because they didn't spend that money on rent, they can spend that money on either saving for a down payment to eventually buy a home, or childcare or healthcare, whatever else urgent need comes to their attention. And by our very conservative estimates, I didn't inflate over 15 years or anything, I literally just took the initial numbers. We think we'll generate at least $24 million in savings for these households by building these units over the first 15 years of the project. Last but not least, obviously, is improving the community amenities that are already there and expanding what is available to the broader community through this project, which we are relying heavily on the city to guide us in exactly what is needed, where it's needed, and how to do that, because we don't pretend to tell you that we know better than you what to do. Moving along, you see a sense of what the homes will look like. As we said, it's a variety of 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. There will be multiple distinct models that each have distinctive exterior, both colors and elevations, so that it doesn't look cookie cutter. This is very important to us, so that we'll have, I forget the exact number, somewhere between 17 and 18 different variations of how an exterior can look, and we'll make sure that we don't put one right next to the other. That'll be part of our agreement with the city. Even if you didn't make us do it, we do it anyways, because it's just smart marketing. So that's, I think, an important notice to have. All of the homes will have either full or half porches. We want to have this be a porch community, so people are outside talking with their neighbors and watching the kids play. That's the whole point of doing this for us. And there will also be a variety of interior color patterns and cabinet mixtures that we will put in the home. So once again, they don't look cookie cutter. A little more about the type of housing. We will be building these homes, all of them, to the Fannie Mae MH Advantage and Freddie Mac Choice Building Standards. These were published by both Fannie and Freddie about 1.5 years ago. And if you build to these standards, if we were building these as home ownership, these would qualify for any Fannie or Freddie normal 30-year fixed rate mortgage. They treat homes built to this standard no different than any other home. Because they found through their experience that they are no different than any other home, and they're encouraging its use for reasons like this one. So while we're not initially providing these as home ownership opportunities, we're using that standard for what we build to, so everyone can be comfortable that this is a quality product coming into A, your community, B, the people that live there, and C, our own reputation going forward, so we don't ruin our own as we go forward and try to do this down the road. I won't read all the details here. You see them, you can get the presentation, but there's a very thick set of regulations that govern what you have to do to meet these standards, and we will meet them. In addition to these standards, we also have to meet, obviously, the Washington Housing Finance Agency's design requirements that are also pretty strict and detailed. So in this case, we actually will have 2 masters that we will be serving as we design this, the State Housing Agency and Fannie Freddie. Last but not least, just a little more about the lack of current supply in the community. I know I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know, but these are, I thought, 2 important things in the market study that was worth calling out. The first is that within a 20-mile radius at the time of the market study, there was not a single 4-bedroom home for rent. None. 0. And of the 10 comparable properties within a 20-mile radius, only 3 had 4-bedroom units, period. This product is just simply not available. And I think any community that wants to have their workforce live within it needs something like this available that they can afford. And then just walks, the rest of this just walks through the stuff we're spending money on, which I won't bore you with right now. So that's what we've got. Thank you for listening. I hope you didn't fall asleep while you were listening, and I'll be here for the rest of the evening to answer any questions or comments that come up.
All right, thank you very much. Marty, is it Marty? No. Abram. All right. Donna?
Yes.
Signed up for public testimony, or should I say how many have signed up for public?
Well, I have a list of 5 right now, so I will start with the top, and I have John Johnson.
Hey guys, can you
Okay,
hear me?
and I'll start the timer. John, you have 3 minutes, okay?
That's not very long, but
I
I
know.
understand. I know you can't see me. It's kind of dark in here, but it's good to see you all anyways. So yeah, I just heard about this, I think the project last night, and I understand that the Huff and Puff isn't going away. I probably spend more time on the Huff and Puff than anyone else. At least that's my experience, because I'm there almost every day. And I see other people that use it, and it's a well-used city amenity, certainly, and it was recently resurfaced, and I believe it's a world-class running place to run and walk, but also I would argue that manufactured, home development adjacent to it is not an enhancement for the Huff and Puff or the disc golf course. I see that property as valuable to the Huff and Puff because it houses a lot of wildlife and birds and things like that. And that's one of the reasons people like going into the woods there. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I live out in Arcadia, so I don't live in the city, but I certainly enjoy visiting it every day. And I work for the Shelton School District, and I say my main job there is I'm the cross country and track coach. So I coach the endurance athletes, and as you know, they use that property over there extensively. So oftentimes on our team, we produce valedictorians from Shelton High School. I firmly believe, some people would say it's could be correlation rather than causation, but I believe the time they spend in the woods over there helps them become better students. So I see that property, the entire property, not just the footpath or the disc golf course, but also the woods and the wetlands surrounding that, as essential to the well-being of young people in this community. of course, someone's excited about this project, and they would also see this project as essential to the well-being of people in this community. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here right now. So now that we get more information, this came out of probably a ton of work that people did for this. I guess, I don't know if it's a buzzword, workforce housing. I think it might be a buzzword now. But anyways, now that we know more that this is going to be rental manufactured homes. And well, one more thing before I shut up and let someone else talk is I disagree with the guy that just gave the presentation, Abram. I don't believe that's underutilized land that the city has. So I think the city is wise to hold on to it rather than let that go to Abram and his company. That's about it for now. I understand we're going to have more time later to talk about this. So thanks.
Thank you, John. Next on the list is Kyle Cronk. And Kyle, you also have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, city council members. Thanks for allowing this and getting this on the agenda. I just want to speak for a couple minutes just on community strength. And I think that this project really does improve the community. Affordable housing is certainly a need throughout the region. I am the president and CEO of the South Sound YMCA. And the city of Shelton has done an amazing job with its current development over the last 4 or 5 years. And I think this just adds to it. So affordable housing is definitely a need. And I think this is a high and best use of this particular piece of property. You already have, Shelton has great education. You already have access to world-class healthcare. And now you're just increasing the amount of, again, housing to keep people in your community. And then with the addition of the YMCA so close to there, the expansion and enhancement of the Huff and Puff, the gentleman just spoke about, enhancements to the disc golf area, and the addition of a mountain bike course that is open to all types of riders will just create more people coming to the region, which in my opinion increases the economic output of the community. So I'm a proponent of it. I think this development is good. That's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Who's next?
Okay. Next on the list is Mike Fox. And Mike, you also have 3 minutes. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
There
Okay.
you go.
Okay, good, thanks. Thanks, City Council, for letting us speak tonight. Thanks to Jeff Knighton. He was nice enough to actually listen to my concerns today. We spent about half an hour talking on the phone, so I appreciate his time. Most of you guys know me. I'm a lifelong Sheltontonian. I'm a business owner and involved with the high school and track and field. I am a developer. I do not have a problem with development, but I do have a problem with the process of what's happening here and how it's going about. I've lived my life here, most of my life here in Shelton. I've lived most of my life on Island Lake. I am concerned about the health of the lake and the watershed and the wetlands that are within the watershed. Talking to Jeff, this kind of started back in April at Alderbrook with the Housing Task Force. It was clear, and I don't think it took a task force to do that Shelton has a problem with both affordable housing and rental housing. We own quite a few rental houses around Shelton. We probably haven't had a vacancy in 5 years. If we did have one, it filled up and we had 15 people trying to get it within a day's time. So I'm not against development, but I am against this process and how it's come about. So from April till today, there's been a process that has taken place. And it's obviously been a fairly involved process, in that you have somebody that just gave you a presentation about a $65 million project that includes subsidies from housing tax credits and a subsidy that will be coming from the city of Shelton via what I understand in talking to Jeff is the sales price and how that's being paid. Here's my problem is there was no one that I have talked to, and I've talked to quite a few people, including people who were on that task force, who had any idea that this was even in a process or was happening. You know, me and Jeff talked about notice and how that comes about. I don't think there was much effort. There was no effort that I saw or understand was given at the beginning of this project. Again, the housing came to the conclusion that we needed housing. From there, how did we decide the Huff and Puff was a good spot for that? There's been no community input into, you know, what is the best and highest use for the city watershed? And is that as a housing development with 400 houses crammed in? Also, how the city is dealing with how this is being paid. Yes?
Maybe you can't hear the timer, but it's going off. Your 3 minutes is up, sir.
Okay. Concerned about, I guess I would ask you to look into how this is being financed. The city is subordinating their purchase price to a lender, which could mean that the city will have no return on this piece of property. And I will get a hold of the individual council members to continue with the concerns that I have. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Donna?
Next on the list is Jim Morrell. And Jim, you also have 2 minutes.
Okay, and you can hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Mayor Dorsey, Deputy Mayor Peterson, members of council. My name is Jim Morrell. I have the opportunity to serve as CEO for the members of Peninsula Credit Union. Tonight, I want to share my strong support of the Workforce Housing Development Project. In January 2018, I shared with the City of Shelton Commission support for the approval of the Economic Development Strategic Plan, which was passed. At that time, and still today, there was a lot of talk in our community about affordable housing, poverty, and homelessness. 2 years ago, in January 2019, Peninsula Credit Union, along with the Shelton Mason County Chamber, the North Mason Chamber, the EDC of Mason County, and Olympia Master Builders, hosted a workforce housing summit. One main recommendation from that countywide conversation was to expand Mason County's diversity of housing options for that workforce. A challenge not only in our community, but beyond, is that there's not enough affordable housing for our workforce. This forces people working at some of our larger employers, such as the Correction Center, Mason Health, SPI, or the Shelton School District, to not be able to live within the community where they work. At Peninsula Credit Union, we are focused on helping to improve the financial capacity of our neighbors and friends that the United Way refers to as ALICE. Asset limited, income constrained, and employed are those who are unable to afford the cost of household essentials such as housing, childcare, food, transportation, healthcare, a smartphone plan, plus taxes and a miscellaneous contingency fund equal to 10% of their household budget. These whole households make $50,000 per year or less. Today, 45% of the City of Shelton households, or 3,124 households, fall below the ALICE threshold, 45%. The Workforce Housing Development Project will help alleviate the housing costs ALICE faces by providing a step between transitional housing, publicly supported housing, and market rate rental or home ownership. Utilizing a calculator provided by the National Multifamily Housing Council, the project before you with 400 homes would generate $110 million of total economic impact and support 433 jobs. As was articulated in the Economic Development Strategic Plan in 2018, this project will provide more opportunities for ALICE to improve his or her household's financial capacity by helping to keep their housing costs at an affordable level. And by supporting more people living in our community is an actionable step that will help contribute to economic growth, thereby helping to address these things we continue to talk about as issues. Thank you for your positive consideration for this project. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, let's see who's next. We have the gentleman who spoke earlier or started to speak, Gary Minor. You're up, and you also have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm concerned with just nothing else, a generic concept. over 50%, based on the studies I'd heard, over 50% of the homes that exist in the city of Shelton are occupied by non-owners. Now, if you throw in 400 new homes at substantially lower rents, are you really going to solve your problem, or are they just going to leave 400 vacant homes when they move into this new development? I mean, to me, that's almost an automatic, but I still would like to see if there's any way we can address better communication with not just people that live within the city, but the people that live outside that are going to be impacted by traffic. We already have speeders. If we're going to have a way to ensure, are they all going to be connected to sewers or what? I don't know. But I'd like to see more visibility on the planning and more opportunity for all of us to provide input and our concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gary. Is that it, Donna?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
We have Trish McCoy is next on the list. And Trish, you have 3 minutes.
First of all, I want to say, hi, Donna, I miss you.
Hi, Trish.
To everybody else, I want to say my family's been here since 1963. I know a ton of people around the lake. Mike Fox, I want to thank you for speaking up and for taking a strong charge on this. I'm so worried. I've watched our little island disappear from all the non-island lake people coming to the lake and, you know, doing the big waves. I'm really disappointed in the city, I think. I looked up the land today. It's valued at $450,000. There are so many people around the lake who could have written a check. And I didn't know that there was an opportunity that this place was for sale. In fact, I'm a teacher at Mountain View, and 2 years ago, we did a Lego project on the clarification of water, of what happens when rainwater goes through the ground, how it cleans it. So I'm totally disappointed. I'm scared to death what this is going to do to our community. And that, I know I'm speaking from emotion. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, but I think if you're going to sell the land, put it up for sale for people around here who could have a chance to buy it. Let us develop it in a way that works for us. Anyway, that's all I have. Thanks, Donna. It was good to see you.
You too. Thank you, Trish.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, let me look at the 3 screens and see. I see a hand. Jeff Conklin has his hand up. So Jeff Conklin, you may begin, and you, sir, have 3 minutes. You need to unmute yourself.
There, how's that?
That's good.
Good deal. I did email you earlier today, Donna, but somehow to get on the list, but somehow we missed each other. To the commission and Mr. Mayor and Deputy Mayor Peterson, thank you for allowing me to have this conversation. A lot of you know me. I'm a 4th generation Sheltontonian, and my great-great-grandfather came here in the 1880s and started developing Shelton, Washington. I've been involved in the development of housing in this community for a long time. I'm a real estate broker. I've been at it here for 45 years. I sat on the city's planning commission. I have developed low-income housing tax credit properties in Mason County. And I've been on housing authorities, and I get it. I'm a proponent for the development of good housing for people that need it. There's a number of things about this project on its face that I've got some issues with, but this isn't the time and place to try to deal with that. My concern is process. And what I'm really concerned about right now is that I don't know who made the decision to strike a deal with this developer without going to the marketplace to see what kind of deal we can find that actually might make the city more money. Maybe there isn't. But I think we owe it to ourselves and the community members to take a big piece of equity that the city has and find out what is the highest and best use of this property, not what is staff's opinion of the highest and best use of this property. No offense, Jeff, but I think this takes more thought. This has not been very transparent. There's been a lot of work done with the workforce task force, and I think that's swell, and they did a lot of really good work. But the way to make this go together isn't by just shoving a process through and signing a deal and patting ourselves on the back and saying, okay, now let's work out the details. The time has come right now to say, what's the highest and best use? This isn't all about money. It's about being good stewards of a piece of land that we can't reproduce. Are there other things? Can we do other things besides what's being proposed? Can we raise capital to turn this piece into a nature preserve that might be just a really good thing to help manage and keep the aquifers protected? And there's a lot of other issues regarding drainages that need to be spoken to. But right now, it's about process. And I think there needs to be a group of people pulled together to help you, the council, make some
Excuse
good
me,
decisions.
Jeff.
Yes.
Your time is up. My timer is not making enough noise, apparently. No one
Well,
can
I'm
hear it
making too
except
much
me.
noise, Donna. I'm making too much noise.
Well, I can mute you if you like.
That's fine. I'm fine. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to be part of that process if I can be of help.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I will look and see if I see anyone else.
All right.
And Donna, if I may, there's someone that had posted in the chat. They don't have their hand raised, but there was an Amy asking if she could ask a question. So I don't know if Amy's still interested in making a comment.
I responded to her asking if she had a question, and I think that Jeff Knighton responded to her as well. So Amy, are you interested in making a public comment?
Amy, if not, feel free to email me. I'll be happy to answer your question.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I don't see anyone else interested in public comment on this item.
All right. In that case, can I ask for a reading of ordinance number 1962-1220?
Ordinance number 1962-1220, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, adopting a development agreement with Equity Plus LLC.
All right. I'd like to ask each of the council members if they have any questions or comments.
Before we jump in, perhaps if City Manager Knighton could address some of the concerns that were brought forward today, and we can begin there and then allow the council members to participate.
Absolutely. So Mr. Minor initially asked about an environmental impact statement on the property. So if one is required, absolutely. And that's part of what I was talking about during my presentation with the actual review of the project when it comes in, so we can take a look at wetlands and everything else. Not to get too far into the weeds on this at this meeting, but if there is what's called a determination of significance on the SEPA document that is a public document that everybody's available to comment on, then at that point, that triggers the need for an environmental impact statement. So just to answer that question. There's also a concern about traffic and infrastructure, and those are absolutely concerns that we have looked at. As I mentioned during the presentation, this project will pay approximately $1.4 million toward the traffic control at Wallace Neyland and Brockdale. We also will ensure traffic safety, with turning movements. And again, that's all part of the development review process when an actual plan comes in for us to take a look at, and not the concept map that the public has in front of them today. Mr. Fox mentioned concern about the health of the wetland and the lake. Again, that's part of the development process, and we take a look at all those things and then make sure that they're engineered appropriately to make sure that the wetland is not impacted, and the island lake, so that we don't have stormwater runoff that runs that direction. It's all treated on site before it impacts other properties. The rule of thumb in Washington is that you cannot send more water to a piece of property from pre-development when it's raw land. You can't send any more water when it's developed. So that's one of the many things we take a look at when we're doing development review. Some concern about process, and I tried to address this a little bit in my initial comments, but the process, the public was involved. Many of our community stakeholders were involved in the Workforce Housing Summit, in the Housing Task Force, and many other things, and made recommendations. And those recommendations are what we took when we're taking a look at what projects would most benefit the citizens of our community. And going forward, as I mentioned again, this is the first step in a very long process. It's not the last step. There's nothing being approved this evening. There won't be anything approved, nothing concrete, I should say, approved at the next meeting. This is a development agreement that lays out what we would like to see and what the developer is willing to provide. And the public has an opportunity in this interim 2 weeks to formulate their comments and concerns before we come back to the next meeting on January 19th. And then more than several public meetings where the public will be invited to speak to council at times, beyond that. So the process, we want to make sure it's transparent. We want to make sure that the public is involved in the approval. But if anybody has negotiated anything, you don't have anything to talk about until you have a document that everybody can look at and criticize, which is fine. And Mr. Conklin, no offense taken, not at all. We're happy to have participation in the public process. And I think that, one more thing, the bid process, taking it out to public bid, there is no requirement in Washington state law anywhere or in city policies that we have a competitive bidding process for a piece of property. In fact, the requirements in state law are a lot less than what we're doing for this project. We don't even have to have an appraisal, but we are doing one because it's the right thing to do, and we want to make sure that we get the most bang for our buck and produce a project that benefits the citizens of Shelton and the wider community. So I think I hit them all. But if council has any other ones or wants to remind me of one I forgot, I'd be happy to try to answer that.
Jeff, would you mind roughly, could you provide, because I believe there's some misinformation about the relationship between the Workforce Housing Task Force meeting that was a couple of years ago and this project. When were we approached about this project, and what is its correlation to the Workforce Housing Task Force? Thank you.
Yeah, so this particular project began about a year ago. Actually less than that, about 9-10 months ago. But the correlation between the two is the Workforce Housing Task Force and the summit identified the need. And then it's something that we do is take those identified needs and recommendations and look for solutions to those. This is one potential solution. It's not the only one, but it's one. Identifying the need to address the workforce housing concerns here in the community. Someone mentioned that they had 60 rentals and you can't find a vacancy. There's a waiting list for them. Even without a market study, which was produced, even without a lot of the information that came out of the task force, that fact alone will tell you that something needs to be done. But nothing has up until this point. And this is the city taking a leadership position to try to make something happen to benefit the citizens in our community.
I've got a couple of questions. So there's conversations around these being modular units. So I have questions around where those are produced, or if they're local, and how they come in. And then also, Jim had talked about the number of jobs that it'll help create as well. So I'm interested also in the number of jobs locally with the building of and the expansion of the property. Understanding also that we have huge need in this community for this. I mean, we've identified this for not just 2 years ago at the housing. This has been an issue and a workforce issue, an economic development issue for years. And we have to find a balance between, where we were as a community and where we need to be as a community, and how we are going to take care of our current and next generations, and the housing and lifestyle in which they desire to live in, and how they can actually afford to grow into and then take care of their next generation of families as well. Because we're only going to continue to feel the squeeze here. So that I do have questions around the modular piece of it, and the job that it's going to create for the period of time that the project would be running. And then let me come back to it. I'm sure I have another one, but I didn't write it down. So let me come back.
Okay.
All right, is there anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I see a gentleman, Todd. How do you pronounce your last name, Todd?
Fag.
Fag? Okay,
Yes.
Todd, let me get my timer up here. Give me just a second.
Okay, and how long do I get?
You get 3 minutes, just like everybody else.
Absolutely. I didn't know how much time. I'm sorry.
Okay, you may begin. Your 3 minutes is starting.
Okay, so I think that this is a very, I'm just going to use the word ignorant. For anybody in the government of Shelton to think that this is doable in the city of Shelton. Number one, we do not have the infrastructure. Number two, are we looking at how it is going to impact our schools? Okay, not only is it going to impact our schools in terms of classroom sizes, but now it's busing. Do we need more buses now? Is it going to impact free and reduced lunches? These are all strains on the school system. The roadways cannot handle this many new people. How many more officers are going to be hired for the city of Shelton because of the potential growth? These are temporary jobs, and when those temporary jobs leave, where are these people supposed to go to work? Because I don't know how many times you've been outside of your homes here recently, but Shelton is not a booming place for a lot of people that are looking to hire a lot of industry here in Shelton. I think that you should look at getting industry here first and then look for housing, because right now one cannot accommodate the other. And I just think it's very foolish for you guys to even consider something like this, especially on this side, the magnitude in which you're doing it. It should be half, a quarter of what you're looking at. I get wanting to help those in that it's, someone had mentioned about not being able to find a rental. Rentals rent for a whole heck of a lot more than, and I get that, but we're going to be bringing a lot of additional people into Shelton. in the area that it's going to be. There's 2 grocery stores. You've been in those grocery stores lately. They're really packed. Now we're bringing in that many more people. The infrastructure cannot sustain this, period. And I would like to know how many officers are going to be hired for this, because we are bringing in of the units and the number of people, how many thousands more people are we bringing in, which means that the growth of the city means the growth that the police department needs to grow. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Okay,
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I can see Amy has her hand up now.
Okay, hey, Amy.
Did you want to comment? And if so, I need your first and last name, please.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. It's Amy Roswell, and I am an Island Lake resident. Sorry, I couldn't chime in earlier. I have a daughter I'm trying to get to bed, so I chimed in about 20 minutes late, so I may have missed this, and I apologize if I have, but was there other areas considered for this development? And if so, are those completely out of the, I guess, ring of being, is this the only area that is now being considered for this? Again, this has been just kind of thrown on all of us very quickly here. And I know personally as a resident here, my main concern is the traffic, because I live on the busy part of Island Lake where people cut through. I've had multiple people drive through my yard speeding. I heard the comments about all the 1.7 million and additional police, blah, 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 all that. But I feel like, I don't know, that I feel like it's zero now. So I've never seen anyone be pulled over on this road. It's a massive problem that I have personally tried to get some resolution to and never have. So that's my concern, is with traffic and being the mother of a small child and already having 2 people drive through my yard and nearly into my house over the last 2 years. Bringing additional people and additional traffic is a huge concern to me. And I'm also a real estate agent, but only in this area for the last 6 years. So I guess I'm just wondering what other areas were considered, and if those other areas are still being considered, or is this it? And this is most likely where this is all going to happen. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, Donna?
Mr. Mayor, I do have someone else that has their hand raised. It just says iPhone. So I sent them a message asking if they want to speak, and if so, I need their name. So
Yes, sorry, Donna, that's me. This is Ryan Scholes.
Hi, Ryan. Okay, let me get my timer set. Okay, 3 minutes, Ryan Scholes.
So I am a Island Lake member as well. Chose to build my house here in 2015. Everybody around the lake has a custom home. They're not manufactured homes mostly. So 1, I'm worried about our property value. 2, I agree with Amy. The road traffic is terrible. And I don't feel that the watershed is the best place to log and develop into something else with this many homes. What happened to the Shelton Hills project? That, to me, brings more sustainability for the city because, 1, there's the infrastructure updates that are needed. During this pandemic, it's hard to find the stuff that we need at the grocery stores with the amount of people we have. And with Todd saying that, what happens when we add this many more people? And again, it's temporary jobs to do this work. And then what is going to happen with these places? Are they going to have to go through Crossroads for help to find funding for their rental assistance and whatnot? So there's all sorts of things. I know that housing is needed here, but it seems to me this is not the best way to go about this. That's all.
All right.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, anybody else with their hand up?
Let me check. Oh,
Mr. Mayor,
I
I
see.
believe Councilmember McDowell would like to speak.
Hello, I'm here. I just have one question, and I didn't get a chance to find this answer out earlier, but could Jeff enlighten me on, and everyone else, on how did we come up with the need for 400 houses? What are the numbers of the amount of people that we're looking at moving here?
So just a couple of comments on this. The 400 number was because if everything was ideal, that's what the property could hold. The market study, which I've shared with the council, shows the need for more than that. And those are community residents. Those aren't people that are moving here specifically for the housing, other than perhaps people that work at the prison that would like to live closer but can't, for whatever reason, whether that's cost or anything else. Another comment I wanted to make, Ms. Roswell asked if there were any other properties considered. No, and the reason that answer is no is because this is the only chunk of property that's this size that the city owns. There are plenty of private pieces of property, but again, nothing has happened on those properties for some time, and we need to provide the housing now, as identified by both the Housing Task Force and the summit, the Workforce Housing Summit. Also, concerns about the road and the traffic, understood. And that is something that we will be addressing through the development review process. Again, this is not the final decision, nor is the map that's attached a regulatory map that we can point to and say, no, you have to do this. It's a concept to provide affordable housing, workforce housing to the community. And lastly, just received an email from Nancy and Ron Porter, not necessarily wanting to speak to council, but wanted me to relay to you that workforce housing is sorely needed, and they just wanted to voice their family's support for the project.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask that other question that I finally wrote down?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, was it Megan?
Yeah, thanks. And actually, Jeff, this is probably towards you. If we enter into this, do this motion and take this vote tonight, and we have a private developer here locally that comes to us in the next couple of weeks and can work with us in the way that it takes the math. There's a very specific formula for workforce housing to make that federal dollar effective for our community. I know that we haven't had any developers, step to the table with us here locally for that yet. But if that happens in the next couple of weeks, what does that mean for us in this process?
So the development agreement obligates the city to hold up the terms of that agreement. It is not a purchase and sale agreement, but that will be coming soon. The purchase and sale agreement is the one that locks in the basically the transfer of the property.
Mr. Mayor, just a comment.
Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you. Wow. Okay. So first of all, this is awesome. I appreciate everybody's comments. I think this is the maybe second most populated city council meeting we've probably ever had. This is what makes the public process work. There were a lot of comments tonight that I share similar concerns with or have similar thoughts. Personally, I live right across the street from where this development is going to go. Another thing I can share personally is 10 years ago, I moved to Shelton. and I'm a government I'm a state employee. Starting salary where I worked, I could afford the home that I bought, and I've been fortunate to have a decent paying job. I couldn't afford to live close to work. I couldn't afford to live in Olympia. I couldn't afford to live in Pierce County. Shelton was the best option. I wanted to put a roof over I wanted to start a family. I wanted to put a roof over their heads. Quite frankly, today, while I'm happy that my property values have increased over 110% in that 10 years, I wouldn't be able to afford it on my salary. And it's tough to think about what I may not have today as a result of that. I'm motivated to help the middle class, the folks that are working in the community, stay in the community. They deserve to have a fair chance at good housing, safe housing, near schools, near recreation activities, to be healthy. We're sitting on a piece of property that has, we haven't had plans for. We're approached with an idea. Just about everybody we talk to in the community talks to us about the needs for housing, especially local business. We've definitely heard the needs for workforce housing to support Washington Correction Center, to support the mill operations and other large entities. And quite frankly, there's definitely some things we need to work out. I definitely have traffic concerns. I definitely, right now as it stands, Brockdale Road is a failing road. It's in much need of improvement. This project is going to help us fix Brockdale Road. This project is going to be an economic catalyst for the area. This project is going to help, and I think in many ways. That said, there's things we need to iron out, and I look forward to continuing through and trying to do what we can to address these concerns. Again, the commentary about lack of transparency, or the commentary about this being dropped at kind of the last minute, quite frankly, that's just not true. We've been approached this process. If somebody contacts you and says, "Hey, I want to invest $65 million in Shelton," go on. There's a time frame, right? These things take a little bit of time to come to fruition. And quite frankly, there were some things initially that I believe had some risk to it that we've had to go back and forth on with the city manager, provide direction and say, this is what the council is comfortable with. And, if I circle back to the council's strategic goals, and, we spent a lot of time, we all have a lot of history in this community, and we all have a strong vision for our community. And those three strategic goals of accountable government, community life, and economic vitality, projects like this absolutely hit all three of those goals. And at the end of the day, we do have a fiduciary responsibility, and I want to hear from you guys if we're not hitting the mark. We can improve that. I apologize if there's been miscommunications or lack of communications, but that's solvable. We can get there. So hang with us. Keep the information coming back and forth, and I think we can pull off a fantastic project that has a lot of benefits for a lot of different components within the city of Shelton.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sure I have 30 seconds left. Can I make just 2 comments, please?
Just a moment, Mr. Fega, and we'll let you make your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Technically, after Donna reads the ordinance and it passes back to council, council should be the only one with further questions or dialogue. But just following the rules of procedure.
Thank you.
But I do want to make sure that everybody knows that if you have questions that have come up after tonight, that you can participate at the next meeting on the 19th. Or you can email me and I'll try to answer your questions directly, or call me and I'll try to answer your questions directly. We're not trying to cut anybody off here. I just want to make sure we follow the correct procedure. So with that, Mr. Fag, if you want to make your 2 comments, and then that's it for tonight for other than the council, but there will be more opportunities.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. However, to Joe's comment, to fix Brockdale, I don't think building 400 units is a wise way to fix Brockdale Road. There's another way and a cheaper way to fix Brockdale Road than put 400 units in. And number 2, maybe I'm hearing things wrong, but it seems to me that the decision has already been made on how this is going to go. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Bold, do you have a comment?
Definitely. I appreciate everybody showing up in your comments. I'm enjoying this robust conversation. I'm glad this many people are showing up and talking with us. There's definitely things about this that I don't like as well. I definitely don't feel that my mind is completely made up, but my mind is made up to keep communicating about this and talk with somebody who's actually making an offer to invest in Shelton. Don't agree with some of the things that were said. I don't think kicking $300 off somebody's rent is going to build their wealth. I think home ownership is what's going to build people's wealth, much more than that. And I would love to see more homes that are being put in here for entry level, but that's not the deal with this project. And that was explained why it can't be used for this specific project. But there's just a lot more that we're going to be talking about on this. We're not signing a contract tonight, like Jeff said. We still actually have to execute a contract to sell this, and we do not have one right now. So It's not a done deal. And by no means is this just getting rubber stamped through. Let's keep engaging and keep talking. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Bode. How about Mr. Onisco?
Deidre wants to go. Go ahead.
Oh, where's Dale? Sorry.
Deidre.
Thank you, Eric. I just wanted to, again, point out that while it isn't typical for us to have a second public hearing on this process, if council concurs, I think it would be wise for us to add a second public hearing to the meeting on the 19th, because we have seen such significant community feedback on this. And so if other council members are agreeable to that, I'd like to see us amend the agenda for the 19th in that fashion. Separately from that, I would ask if City Manager Knighton could discuss a little bit about what the impact of these additional households or rooftops might have to city infrastructure and our existing ratepayers, how that might affect things.
I agree with Councilmember Peterson. I think that we do need to have additional opportunity for folks to provide input in the next meeting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more room for more discussion. So does council concur to move this ahead for more discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if you could just phrase the question as, does council concur to have an additional public hearing on the 19th?
Okay. Does council concur to have an additional public hearing on the 19th?
Sure.
Concur.
Okay, we'll do that.
Make that happen. Okay, so to Deputy Mayor Peterson's questions. The effect of additional housing, especially this much, up to 400, and again, that's not a locked-in number, but up to 400 homes. When retail businesses and other businesses, industrial, commercial, are looking to locate in a community, they look at what they call their trade area, and their trade area varies depending on type of business. So your trade area for a 7-Eleven is less than a mile. It's a circle around the site where you think you want to locate your business. And you look at the number of people that live within that circle. For something like a Trader Joe's, it's going to be a 25-mile circle around where they want to locate. And they look at the number of rooftops that are within that circle. And then they break it down a little bit further. How many people per household, how much money does each household make on average? And that, based on their business plan, will determine whether they locate in your community. So one of the effects of adding additional rooftops is being able to attract additional business development. And one of the points made tonight was attract industry first. Ideally, yeah, The problem is industry, as was mentioned by a different point, industry is not going to locate in a place where people have to drive an hour to get to them. That's just reality. And then thirdly, on the ratepayers specifically, as Deputy Mayor mentioned, when you have capital costs for something like a water system or a sewer system, if you spread out the cost of those systems among more houses, more hookups, the individual cost goes down. The same is true on a lesser extent to your for your city tax rate. We have a set amount. The more people that pay into it, the less each individual pays. So, yeah, that's those are some of the benefits of building inside the city limits, building additional rooftops inside the city limits. Now, I don't disagree that those also come with costs, like roadway infrastructure. However, the project themselves have to pay things called impact fees. Those are traffic impact fees for each home. And that's where the $1.4 million that I mentioned earlier, that's where that number comes from, based on our current traffic impact fee and 400 houses. So that's, I think I answered your questions, Deputy Mayor. If not, let me know.
Eric?
Just a quick comment. I've been sitting on this council for 3 years and in the audience for years before that. And the one thing that comes up over and over and over again is we need affordable housing at all levels, low income, middle income, and even upper income housing. And I've heard some comments today and also on social media about there's so many investors here that would be willing to invest in Shelton. There's property all over Mason County that is available for investors. Hall's Equity, where are those homes? We are ready for Hall's Equity. We have been ready for them for years. So I think this is a great start at providing some affordable housing. And I'm looking forward to going further with this.
Yeah. All right. So we concurred to move this on, right?
We did.
Okay, we're going to close this public hearing and we'll resume our regular meeting. And we have one more item from Aaron, a resolution to update the master fee schedule.
Thank you. Good evening again, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. The resolution here would update the city's master fee schedule for 2021. It is best practice for the city annually to update fees for any changes in cost to provide the service, to add any new services that we are providing, and to eliminate any services that are no longer provided by the city. Fees and charges for services such as licensing, parks and recreation, code enforcement, and services like that may be set at a level that recovers all of the direct costs, the indirect costs, as well as administrative overhead costs. Utility fees should be set at a level that allows for future service demands, capital needs, and maintains the utility in a manner in which it needs to be maintained for its services. Attached to the briefing, there are several pages of track changes on the fees. Those, as you know, are the items that are changing. Director Ziegler and Director Harris are here to answer any questions that you might have on those changes. And then the schedule behind the resolution is a clean schedule which incorporates all of those changes. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Do we have public comment here, Donna?
I don't think so, but let me look. No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, do we have a motion to move this forward?
I move that we forward this resolution to the January 19th City Council meeting to be placed on the action agenda for further consideration.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to forward this resolution to the January 19th council city meeting to be put on the action agenda for further consideration. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. All right, the last item on the business agenda are contacts for supplemental building code service. Community Developer Director Mark Ziegler has the details. Hey, Mark.
Good evening again, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, members of the public. The review and permitting of large commercial projects or significant residential construction activity in a timely manner is important to the city's economic vitality. Supplemental building code services are needed to augment the lone city staff person. We have one building official here at the city of Shelton in an effort to maintain reasonable review times and inspection schedules. The supplemental services may also be utilized if there's a potential conflict of interest or other matters where we'd have to send that work out outside of city staff. So on October 16th, the city of Shelton called for statements of qualifications from consultants to provide those supplemental building code services. We received 4 responsive submittals by the November 20th deadline. Staff reviewed those qualifications of those consultants and is recommending the top 2 consultants to proceed with contract execution. This would be a 2-year contract for each with a 1-year option afterwards. So the existing contract is 21 through 22. The top 2 consultants were Clarity Consulting Engineers and Code Pros LLC, and their services are all billed as a percentage of the city's building or plan review fees. So depending on the fee that is charged based on the ICC chart for construction costs, the consultant would charge a percentage of what the city is collecting. And at no time is that 100% of what the city collects or above. So it would cover all costs through the plan review or permit fee.
All right. Public comment, Donna?
No, there isn't, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I move,
that we forward the
Oh, Megan's got it.
I move that we forward the supplemental building code services contract with Clarity Consulting Engineers and Code Pros LLC to the January 19th City Council meeting and put it on the action agenda for further consideration. And thanks for your good work on this, Mark.
Second.
And Joe has a second. Thank you.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second to forward the supplemental building code services contracts with Clarity Consulting Engineers and Code Pros LLC to the January 19th City Council meeting and place it on the action agenda for further consideration. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion carries. All right. Move on to the action agenda. The first item on the action agenda is a resolution to amend petty cash monies. Accounting Manager Terry Snitzer will give us more information.
Thank you, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and the council members and members of the public. On December 15th, I brought forward to you a petty cash resolution to amend the monies from 3,500 down to 2,100. And that is basically, we eliminated the police department's petty cash. All their transactions come up to our customer service, which eliminated all their cash transactions. So I'm just asking council to approve this resolution tonight.
All right. Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
Donna, once again, any public comment here?
Let me look. No, there is no public comment, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Would you give us the first reading of resolution number 1182-1120?
Yes. Resolution number 1182-1120, a resolution of the City of Shelton, Washington, amending the petty cash monies for various city departments.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt resolution number 1182-1120, a resolution amending petty cash.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution. Well, wait a minute, I should ask for any questions or comments from the council? I don't think so. All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1182-1120, a resolution amending petty cash. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? That motion carries. Last item on the action agenda is a resolution for the purchase of Kubota membranes. Public Works Director Jay Harris will share details with us.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, and public. On December 15th, I spoke to you about the membrane filter plant, treatment plant. And in 2019, we replaced 1/3 of the filters there. We have the other 2/3 of the filters left. And the filters are at 10 years old. They're starting to tear and fail. And so we do need to replace these additional membrane filter cassettes. In this year's budget, we budgeted $425,000 for the project. The quote from Kubota for the new filters came in at $384,000. And we would like authorization to proceed with the purchase. That's the end of my presentation.
All right, thank you, Jay. Once again, Donna, anybody signed up?
Let me look. No, there's no one signed up, Mr. Mayor.
All right, would you please give us a reading of resolution number 1185-1120?
Yes. Resolution number 1185-1220, a resolution of the Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing the city manager to sign a purchase order for the acquisition of membrane filters.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move to adopt resolution number 1185-1220, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign purchase orders for the purchase of Kubota Membrane USA membrane filter cassettes.
Second.
And we have a
Who
motion
wrote
and a
that?
second. All right, do we have any questions or comments for Jay?
I'd just like to make a comment if I may, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
Jay, or Deidre?
I just want to say again that I'm really pleased to see the ongoing commitment from Public Works and the city to protect our waterway, and having these in place is so critical to making sure that not only our aquaculture, but the waterway itself is in good health. And so I commend staff for taking this, as a priority and getting this in place prior to having some failure or event at the system. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We all know that these filters are they wear out and we need to replace them. So, all right. Did I ask for a motion? Yes. Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1185-1120, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign purchase orders for the purchase of Kubota Membrane USA membrane filter cassettes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay, now we've come to administration reports. Jeff, will you give us your manager report?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayors, Council, and members of the public. A couple things I wanted to mention. First of all, we do have the item scheduled for next week for the workforce housing project. At this point, I do not anticipate that will extend the approval date. However, that may change based on council's concerns or desires and the input that we get from the public. So I just wanted to put that out there so everybody is aware when this particular segment of the much longer overall project could be voted on. So with that, we are in 2021. The governor today held a press conference at 2:30 where he outlined a new Safe Start program and a Safe Start plan. And I'm sure many of you saw that, but it basically puts us into regions. And we were grouped with no input, evidently, with Kitsap County and Jefferson and Clallam, even though a lot of our workforce goes to work in Thurston. So I don't know how that decision was made. Logically, off the top of my head, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but there may be information that I don't have. But anyway, there are requirements for us to move into the next Safe Start phase. And a couple of those requirements are a downward trend on new COVID cases for 14 days and 90% or less capacity in ICU beds at the hospital. And there was a point made that that is all ICU beds, not just COVID related. That was a strong point that was made today by the governor. There will be, I'm sure, written guidance coming out. It was not available before this meeting. Otherwise, I would have shared it with you. But as soon as I do see the written guidance, I will be sure to pass it along to council. Next, as you're all aware, our new police chief, Chief Beeson, starts next Monday, and her swearing in ceremony will be held at 2 p.m. here. We're only going to have a very small number of people attend. The mayor to swear in, and Mary Ricker, our communication specialist, to videotape, so that our next meeting on the 19th, we can play that videotape for all of you, hopefully successfully. So with that, last thing I wanted to go through is just go through the looking ahead for your next meeting on the 19th, just to make sure that as much as possible, we get the information to the council and to the public that are watching. We'll have, as I mentioned, the videotape of the swearing in for Chief Beeson. We'll have a Shoreline Master Program update with our planner, Jason Dose. He'll provide you with an update on that program. We'll have another presentation on our streets policy for that segment. And then on the business agenda, we'll have the first reading of our second supplemental for the 2020 budget. And that's to recognize the revenue from the bond refunding, where we saved the citizens of Shelton, the ratepayers, a little over $3 million. So that's not a bad thing to highlight again. Then we'll have, let's see, the next look for the council at the city policies. This packet's going to be much smaller than the one you looked at in December. All the administrative policies are complete for the most part. Just awaiting my signature, but the city policies, council will take a look at, and we did make sure to change the initial version of the council deliberation policy back to 3-touch as council requested. What else is on here? We have another on-call qualified poolist contract for our engineering. Rather than this evening, you looked at the building backups, and the next one will be for our engineering backups for specialized projects like stormwater or what have you, on an on-call basis. And then on your action agenda, you'll see all the things that you heard about this evening. And lastly, I want to point out that out of all of our department directors that presented things tonight, the one with the biggest audience was me. After I got done, most everybody left. So I just want to point that out.
Aww.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment?
Yes.
I know we're running short on time, but I did want to point out that I had several people today ask me how they could participate online and join the Zoom meeting. And I admit I had a little bit of trouble finding it myself on the city website, because Donna's so kind as to send us the calendar appointments. But if you go to the city's website and click on City Council and the meeting and agendas page, next to each date, there's a button that says more. And when you click there, that's where you'll find the Zoom link for each individual meeting. So I know Jeff and Mayor Dorsey have already talked about the other ways you can provide public comment, but I again wanted to highlight that opportunity.
Can we add that on the homepage of the website? Just the link?
Yeah, we can take a look at doing that.
Okay.
Hey.
And also, I should say that Mary shares it on the city's Facebook page also.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time she did that, I don't know if it's Zoom or Facebook or somebody was like, uh-oh, somebody just put out a worldwide notification that you're having a meeting, but that's what we wanted to do.
Kathy?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Mayor. Is there any possibility of doing a Zoom on the swearing in of our new police chief for the council members?
We will look at that tomorrow. We'll see.
I would like to know, that would be, I think to have the council members there would be great.
We'll see what magic Mary can work. If it won't work, it's her fault.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, is there any more items for discussion? I think we just had a few more. All right.
Good talk tonight, guys. Good meeting.
Yeah, good meeting. It was long, but it's a lot of information tonight. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, January 19th, 2021 at 6 o'clock. This meeting is adjourned at 7:59. Let's say.
Thank you. Good night.
Yay.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey,